Okay, first of all, even though you might not hear me coughing throughout this video, this infection is getting worse, and like, either way, if I do a video or if I don't do a video, people are going to make assumptions and like get all upset and mad and angry. So it's a no-win situation for me. Now, as far as Glenn, myredbook.com Republican felon, ex-mafia member, probably a first-degree murder, second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and manslaughter, being that he's an ex-mafia member. And he actually did admit that yesterday, by the way, that he has murder convictions on his record as an ex-mafia member. But anyway, so he's also a rapist, a solicitor of rape, an assaulter, solicitor of assault, stalker, solicitor of stalking, 422 PC, death threat maker, libel writer, solicitor of libel writing, slander, solicitor of slander, briber, blackmailer, extortionist, kickback receiver, kickback provider, solicitor of murder, attempted murder, etc., etc. Anyway, so I don't know where I'm going to start right now. Oh, yeah, I do. So when Glenn would come up behind me in the kitchen, that was not flirting. N-O-T. Not flirting. When he came up behind me in the kitchen and he tried to get my knees to buckle, that was intentional. It was malicious. It was nasty. He meant harm. He did not mean flirt. Not. He wanted to harm me, okay? And I have put up with so much verbal abuse from these guys in addition to everything else. Like, pretty much daily, I've heard that I'm an Lesbian like 20 times a day at least. I've heard that I'm stupid 100 times a day. I've heard that I'm lazy 100 times a day. I've heard that I don't know what I'm doing in respect to Peepers the kitty. That I have no clue what I'm doing. And, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry that I figured out that, I've been rohypnoled and RAPED. I'm not sorry about that at all. You're all, upset that I figured it out. And you're all going to crazy make me, the men at least, and I know who's supplying it. It's so obvious. It's either George W. Herbert or at George W. Herbert on Twitter, because his grandfather was a chemistry professor at Mills Peninsula College when it was a women's college in Oakland. Or it's the dumb that probably isn't practicing law anymore because he had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Yes, I said dumb because I'm tired and I'm sick and I'm just tired of all the baloney that's gone on in my life for years and 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 years. So anyway, it can only be George W. Herbert or Cliff Lew. Okay, Cliff Lew's got his PhD in chemistry from MIT. He's no dummy. And he didn't come here to be like, oh, let me get you to, work on your chemistry skills and quotes again. He didn't come here for that. Guys never, ever, ever, ever have pure motives. Never. There's always a non-pure motive behind stuff when it comes to quote-unquote men and guys. There's a lot of evidence behind the Rohypnol and raping me. There's a lot of evidence. Now, onto the subject of myredbook.com Republican felon, ex-mafia member, stalker, solicitor, stalking, 422 PC, death threat maker, rapist, solicitor of rape, suborner of perjury, perjurer, solicitor of perjury, briber, blackmailer, extortionist, libel writer, solicitor of libel writing, slanderer, solicitor of slander, solicitor of murder, attempted murder, etc., Greg Chappell. Okay, the fact that he can RAPE me while I'm rohypnoled and passed out tells you that he doesn't have multiple sclerosis. In addition, I have literally seen him pick up 30 and 40-pound watermelons, like 2 of them back to back, have no problems. Walk him into the kitchen, carve him up, serve himself. I've seen him pick up, 30, 40, 50-pound bags of groceries, like 3, 4 at a time. He has a car that has absolutely no modifications to it. I've seen him run up and down the hall at 2838 Concord Lane, Santa Clara, California, 95051. I've seen him run up and down the stairs. He does not have multiple sclerosis, especially since he can RAPE me. Okay, and don't any of you dare sit there and be like, oh, like women who say that they're just really, like in LOVE with these guys. No, we don't love RAPISTS. We don't love people who sit there and like call us LESBIANS like 100 times a day. We don't love men that sit there and, tell us how stupid we are 100 times a day. We don't love men. He has also called me a Jewish bitch because I started doing background check on my family because I was curious. And it turns out that, like, if you do enough research, it looks like my dad's grandparents or whatever, like, their last name, it looks like it's German Jewish. So it looks like my grandmother, his mother, may have been 100% Jewish or maybe only 50% Jewish. In any case, I don't know for sure because I haven't like done the blood work and all that. I haven't gone to DNA sites or anything like that, and I don't intend to at this point because if there are any people that have been arrested in my family or whatnot, like, I don't want to cause them any grief, and I do think those tests are tampered with by corrupt law enforcement, and I really, truly believe with 100% of my soul that every single person involved with law enforcement, at least in the United States, whether it be judges, presiding judges, chiefs of police, captains, sergeants, lieutenants, meter maids, stenographers, courtroom clerks, court clerks, bailiffs, corrections officers, whatever, 100% of them are corrupt. Based on my own experience, and I've had a lot of experience, unfortunately, because they're criminals trying to shut me up and keep me quiet, among other things. Anyway, so back to the DNA and everything. So I don't even know that like there's any Jewish blood in my family or in me, but myredbook.com, Republican felons, Greg and Glenn Chappell, etc., all their background stuff, like, they called me Jewish bitch like 100 times a day as well, which is a hate crime. Okay, you don't love people that do that either. And there's no law, although men think there is. There's no law that says I have to have sex with somebody that treats me like that doesn't take a bath or a shower for like 4 years. And I'm not discriminating by saying that. I think I don't know what his deal is. I suspect that, he's into the BDSM stuff and he's affiliated, there's so many things, so many people that he's affiliated with, definitely with the MyRedBook.com Republican mob Herbert clan, because they had their property in Montana, and MyRedBook.com Republican felon, etc., ex-mafia member Greg Chappell has family members in Montana, or family members that have come from Montana, plus the 2 ex-mafia members and felons and rapists and suborners of perjury and all that, Greg and Glenn Chappell. They have family members, their brother, George, another George, lives in New Mexico. They lie about everything. There's nothing that comes out of their mouth that is the truth. Ever. Their brother George lives in New Mexico. And MyRedBook.com Republican felon, etc., Bill Hinckley, or Memo, he lived in New Mexico for a while, as did the brother of MyRedBook.com Republican felon, etc., pretending to be a Democrat, Jeff Feinberg, or corrupt at Reddit RDDEDHD on Twitter. His reporter brother, in quotes, that worked for the UCLA newspaper or whatever, lived in New Mexico. And yes, I'm talking about the Bill Hinckley, or Memo, that lied to me, like that's any surprise anymore, and told me that his dad was a psychologist when, MyRedBook.com Republican felon, etc., rapist, solicitor of rape, perjurer, suborner of perjury, solicitor of perjury, all that, like Richard Herbert. When Richard Herbert and I were down in La Jolla, Memo, or Bill Hinckley, lied and said his father was a psychologist, and his father didn't even bother to correct him. Turns out that the parents of MyRedBook.com Republican felon, etc., Bill Hinckley, or Memo, they graduated from Stanford, just like my mom. Yeah, my mom that graduated from Stanford in 3 years with her degree in math, that tutored NFL Jim Plunkett in English. Yeah. So the dad of MyRedBook.com Republican felon, etc., Bill Hinckley, or Memo Hinckley, is an author. And apparently a pretty decent author at that. So, all these people are absolutely 100% connected. And there's not one of them that has not lied their heads off to me. And there's not one of them that has not lied their heads off about me. Now, going back to the MyRedBook.com Republican felon mob Herbert family members, like etc., rapists, solicitors of rape, pimps, 422 PC, death threat makers, perjurers, suborners of perjury, solicitors of perjury, stalkers, solicitors of stalking, libel writers, solicitor of libel writing, slanders, solicitors of slander, bribers, blackmailers, extortionists, kickback receivers, kickback providers, all that. Going back to the MyRedBook.com Republican mob Herbert family. like at George W. Herbert or George W. Herbert on, or at George W. Herbert on Twitter, or at Scotch Fairy, or Lee Thompson Herbert on Scotch Fairy on Twitter, or Lee Thompson Herbert, like, and myredbook.com, Republican felon, etc., rapist, solicitor of rape, molester, solicitor of molestation, pimp, 422 PC, death threat maker, perjurer, suborner of perjury, solicitor of perjury, stalker, solicitor of stalking, all that, Richard Lyon Herbert. Like, you know, way back when I shared a Twitter account, none of these people were on Twitter. None of the Mob Herbert family members, the myredbook.com Republican Mob Herbert family members, were on Twitter. Not until I got onto Twitter did they bother to get onto Twitter. And then every time I would follow like a certain group or certain individuals, like for example, you know, I had to follow a group that was trying to get laws passed to make it a crime for somebody to, without your permission or whatever, take your pictures that, you know, might be suggestive or whatever, like, you know, or take your sex tape or whatever and, you know, post it all over the internet without your permission. They were trying to get that done, like one group. So I started following them, and all of a sudden myredbook.com Republican felon, Mob Herbert family member, rapist, solicitor of rape, stalker, solicitor of stalking, 422 PC, death threat maker, pimp, perjurer, suborner of perjury, solicitor of perjury, all that, George W. Herbert, or at George W. Herbert, started following that same group. And every time I would follow some kind of group, he'd do that. He'd follow them too. And I was the first one to have a Twitter account. And their entire Mob Herbert family, the myredbook.com Republican Mob Herbert family members, and the myredbook.com Republican felon ex-mafia members, Greg and Glenn Chappell, they'd spend like countless hours a day, a week, a month, each year, bringing down every single Twitter account that I was a part of. That's called obsession and big-time stalking and witness intimidation and obstruction of justice. And that proves that they're out to illegally destroy my life, and they definitely intend to murder me with their little comrades from all the myredbook.com Republican felonious raping, soliciting rape, stalking, soliciting stalking, perjuring, soliciting perjury, suborning perjury, assaulting, soliciting assault, 422 PC, death threat, making libel writing, soliciting libel writing, slandering, soliciting slandering, bribing, blackmailing, extorting, kickback receiving, kickback providing, soliciting murder, attempted murdering, police departments and buddies throughout the Bay Area, like the terrorist Sunnyvale Police Department, the terrorist San Jose Police Department, the terrorist Santa Clara Police Department, the terrorist Mountain View Police Department, the terrorist Los Altos Police Department, the terrorist Palo Alto Police Department, the terrorist Menlo Park Police Department, the terrorist Redwood City Police Department, the terrorist San Francisco Police Department, the terrorist Millbrae Police Department, the terrorist Gilroy Police Department. And that's where I'm leaving off on this video.